Hello, personal productivity enthusiasts and community. Welcome to Anything But Idle, the Productivity News podcast. Today's show is brought to you by Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. I'm Ray Smith,
And I'm Augusto Pinot.
and we're your hosts for Anything But Idle. This is episode 111 for November 7th, 2022. It's the rise of the Chief Remote Officer and, of course, the productivity and technology news this week. As always, we cover the productivity articles that we have culled over time. And since we haven't been on for a while, this is obviously going to reach back a few months to some stories we think were really interesting in the productivity blogosphere and podcast audiosphere, that kind of thing. And then we will get into the technology updates for this week. And so with that, let's get into our articles for this week. Augusto, what's our first story of the week?
So the first story is CNBC, and it is this title: "I raised two successful CEOs, and a doctor, and here is an unpopular parenting rule I have always used." And this person is describing how they grow their daughters and make them to be, hey, this is what I do. They need to be responsible. They need to wake up, get dressed, have breakfast, and the reason I keep this article out of the long list is because it is very interesting to me how many of our listeners, during the years has been working how to get more productive, how to engage productivity. And we tend to stop there and didn't give those same tools to our kids. And in many cases, we didn't have those tools. My parents didn't have any productivity tools. So as a person with kids, that's has been one of my focus. What are you responsible, and my kids have their task in Todoist, okay, and they need to grab there, and they're there, and there are rules and there are things, and they are responsible. Actually, it was funny, as I was preparing for the show, my son came to me, and there is a rule: A's and B's, you're good on playing on your devices. If there is a C on your report card, because kids now get this report card that it's updating consistently. I'm glad I did not have that on my time. I will be in so much trouble, but they do. Okay, and the rule is, if there is a C, you lose access to your electronics, at least to play and those kind of things, not to do homework, obviously. And my son was coming concerned about a test that is coming and say, so if the teacher, if I my grade goes down to a C and I do not get another test until the Christmas break or the Thanksgiving break, what's going to happen? And I sit with him, we open Todoist and read the rule together. The rule says that while that C is in Power School, that is a software that the school use, you will have no electronics. And he went running out of here, horrified that he may lose iPad for God knows how many weeks. But it is very interesting to me, as you look at the list, there is nothing in this list that she's asking, waking up, set up your own alarm, make your own breakfast, get your backpack ready. And it's true. We sometimes, in the running of being productive, miss a slowdown to give those tools to our kids, and it is very important. So if any of our listeners have kids, please enjoy the article and maybe implement one or two secrets.
Yeah, well, there are a couple things that stood out for me in the article. One is something that you didn't mention is that she's the mother of both the CEO of YouTube, Susan Wojcicki, and then the co-founder and CEO of 23andMe. So she really hit the jackpot for with children. And the other
Or
other
not,
other
I
child
don't know.
is a doctor. Yeah, and the other child is a doctor. So I mean, three very successful people. And the interesting piece about all of this is that she's just really talking about giving children agency. And I think this works with young adults, this works with children, this works with adults. We should all be just given greater agency, and we'll be more productive by virtue of it. So good on her. Onward.
So our next one, it's on LinkedIn News, and it's talking about, well, all this quiet quitting, and it's made a fun comment, didn't quiet quitting used to be called slacking? And no, I disagree. It's nothing to do with the slacking. I think it's the way some people is labeling quiet quitting. And I think it's more what we used to talk about work-life balance and people trying to put, you know, where are going to be the limits. And no, I don't think quiet quitting are some people going to go to the slacking? Yes, it's a spectrum. But for many people, is hold on, we're working remote or we're working hybrids, and the lines between I am at work and I am not has been blurred. And there is a lot of people working a lot more hours and not having those balance. And there's other people seeing how that train is coming and trying to say, hold on, this is not what I want. And can some of those maybe is lacking? Maybe. But I think many of them are, hold on, let's really redefine this. And this goes really in line to what we were going to discuss towards the end of the show about this remote chief officer. What's going to happen? How all this is going to change and affect other organizations?
Yeah, I can't disagree in totality about the idea of quiet quitting being a little bit more, um, just it's memeable more than it is, worth really being all that concerned about as a manager. As a manager, if you're doing the right things, then quiet quitting is not a problem. Most of the problems that we are seeing in the labor market is pretty much because of poor management. Like it's just what it is. And so if we can find better managers and also upskill our managers so that they don't feel like they have to micromanage in order to be able to see
Mhm.
productive output, then I think all of these issues around quiet quitting or even just slacking or underperforming employees are all going to be just fine. And I don't equate quiet quitting with the idea of doing a sufficient job and going home, right? So one of the videos in that article on LinkedIn kind of tried to equate it to those two pieces, and I think he's missing the definition there. But
Yeah,
either way,
I agree.
yeah, onward to our next story.
The next study is from Lifehack, actually, for the CEO of Lifehack, and it's what is the circle of control and how to use it to stop feeling powerless. And it's a very long article, and it talks about Dr. Covey's circles and influence and the circle of control and the circle of concern. And it was a very, very good refresher. I actually sent it to um, my Insta paper to have it there for future reference because it is a very well written article into what are you focusing on. And I think at different times we need that reminder. Are you really paying attention at towards the circle of concern, outside, or you're really being more paying attention to what you can really control and influence?
I think the TLDR at the end of the article was actually probably the most useful thing, right? It talks about the circle of concern
Mhm.
representing everything that you're worried about, the circle of influence being everything you have control over, you have the ability to act upon, and then the circle of influence is everything we can control or affect somehow, right? So it's basically people stuff, right? So people we can actually influence, and then the circle of control is what you can actually do in response to external situations. And so I feel like this is actually um, misdefined in the TLDR. But anyway, so in its circle of concern is what we're worried about, right? What are we concerned over? Circle of influence are those things that we have relationship to be able to deal with others about. We have influence over people and in those group dynamics. And then circle of control is what we can actually deal with right here and now, and that usually has to do with our own internal thoughts, our own actions, our own attitude toward those things. And we know that the more circle of control that we expand, then the greater productivity, greater mental health, those things are increased and improved by virtue of that. We talk about that in kind of the psychological terms as locus of control, the space by which you have control, the center being something that you increase over time. And so, yeah, I think it was a really great article. It touched on lots of different topics like growth mindset and expanding your growth mindset and developing it better, all of those kinds of things. So I thought it was a good article. A little bit lengthy, but I think it was worth the read if you want to get into it.
Perfect. And our last article in this section, at least, it's an old article. This is from June, and it's from our friend Julie Bestry, Stalling Toxic Productivity in the Workplace and What Comes Next. And toxic productivity is nothing new. And what is toxic productivity is just taking that pleasure or that thing to be more productive to unhealthy extremes. And one of the things that make toxic productivity, in my opinion, very, very difficult is that definition change. There is people who, Julie quote in there the 996 in China, 9 to 9, 6 days a week. Is that toxic? I don't know. Okay. I know people who do that schedule and that's their normal and they are okay with that. So I'm saying everybody consider that healthy? No, but I understand for some people that is what they do. That is their definition of what they want to do. The issue with this is that you are feeling that you need to get more done. That's what for me. I don't measure on times because there are weeks that I work that 9 to 9, 6 times a week. Again, there are other weeks that I don't. Okay. The problem when the productivity turns toxic for me is that moment where at the end of that week or that cycle, you thought, okay, I need to have done a lot more and I should have done. And it's not real. Okay. It's not, no, you work 12 hours a day for 6 days. You cannot accomplish more than what you did. Okay. But how do you define that and what is the effect that will have? Well, if as we go into these hybrid things and we are basically telling people if you come to the office you can disconnect. This is happening in some organizations. Oh, if you come to the office you work 9 to 5, but if you want remote or hybrid, now we're expecting that the days that you're hybrid you work more hours. Well, that we go into that level, into that definition of toxic productivity. So you're telling me that if I go to the office, I will work less than if I stay at home. Why?
Yeah, I found Julie's kind of explication of the history and all of the various pieces very interesting. Of course, taking note of how the European Union has kind of led the charge in terms of being able to experiment and see how to deal with remote hybrid work and 4-day work weeks and all of these other kinds of scenarios. And I'm looking forward to her next article on the subject because she is continuing the series to kind of talk about how people deal with what she termed or at least defined the term productivity dysmorphia, that sense of never feeling fully accomplished, even though you have accomplished something in a day. And I think we've all experienced some level of that in our world. We say it cheekily, but sometimes we really do feel it. And for those of us who are kind of on that hamster wheel, we need to learn how to get off and feel satisfied. And there's a lot about society that tells us that we shouldn't be satisfied with what we've got, with what we've done. And I think it's important for us to keep that in mind as we go forward. All right. I think that brings us to the end of our productivity articles for this week, which takes us along to our midpoint-ish. And so we're going to take a word from our sponsor this week, which is Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club. When we get back, we will kick into the productivity technology articles of the week. And so we'll see you after the break.
While working in person may be normal for you, it's unlikely your coworkers are as interested in being productive as you are. Or working remotely or from home can be isolating. And there's something powerful about being with productive people, even virtually, that helps you be more engaged. If a flavor of these sounds familiar, Co-working Space by Personal Productivity Club is for you. Co-working Space is a virtual work community designed to help members be more effective and efficient in their work and personal lives. At its core, we provide goal tracking and host focused action sessions throughout the week for accountability and camaraderie. Visit anythingbutidle.com/coworking to learn more. Co-working Space lives inside Personal Productivity Club, a digital community for personal productivity enthusiasts, so you can find people who use methods and tools you do too. Again, head over to anythingbutidle.com/coworking to see how Co-working Space can help you be more productive. And now, back to our show.
Welcome back, everybody, to Anything But Idle. I'm Ray Sidney Smith, joined with Augusto Pinaud for the second half of the show, and we will be covering the productivity and productivity technology articles. And so, Augusto, do you want to kick into our first productivity technology article of the week?
So the first one is about make use of and talking about how Google is trying to build. They are way more affirmative than I. How the title is how Google is building the pixel ecosystem to rival Apple. And I have said in this show, and I have said in Productivity Cast, that one of the things that Samsung is doing very, very well is creating that ecosystem. Apple has many shortcomings, but that ecosystem that they have, where I can grab any device and be completely invisible, it is fantastic. And actually, for a while, I praise Microsoft Teams because they were, at least to my knowledge, the first ones who you were able to change device and was invisible for anybody on the call. And I think that is the reason for those people who have multiple devices. Okay, I have multiple devices because they have multiple use. Let me move easy. And I think this is something that if Google really takes seriously and start really integrating phone, tablets, smartwatches, their earbuds, everything, and make them special, okay, in the way Samsung has done it. Samsung has done an incredible job, and it's kind of ridiculous that Samsung is doing a better job than Google. So I hope that actually, Ajush is correct, and Google is actually building this ecosystem. Sadly, from my level of knowledge and my hope in Google, it is not, because they're going to get distracted and bored and decide to kill all the Pixel line again.
No, I don't think Pixel is going away anytime soon. The Pixel devices have been incredibly successful for Google in a lot of ways, and just think about it. It's data, right? They're a data company. They're a software company, and creating a streamline between the hardware being somewhat of an OEM, at least in their Pixel line and in the Nest line for smart home purposes. They're not going to give up on those pieces. They'll give up on individual parts here and there, individual devices, like they did with the Pixel Book. Maybe they'll bring back a Pixel Book someday, or a Pixel Book tablet type of thing. But they're not going to lose sight of the value of having the Pixel line. And I've got a Pixel Watch on order. I'm really excited about the Pixel Watch and its fluidity in working with the Pixel line of phones. And it's how Google's going to get people like me who want to live in the ecosystem. And I've done it for years. I mean, just as you've been in the Apple ecosystem for years, every device I own is just a vessel for my Google products, right? So it's just Google apps and services that are running on top of better hardware, and Google provides that with their with their backbone as an infrastructure. So it's a really nice. I think it's a really nice pairing, and I didn't necessarily agree with the article in the sense that they were really focused on the Pixel line only and forgetting that Google is really an ecosystem of apps and services that run across all of them, and that somehow Google apps on iOS are going to be inferior because they don't have all the bells and whistles. Just because, yes, it's nice that I have a Pixel phone and Google gives me all the bells and whistles first, but those always make it downstream ultimately to iOS and iPadOS eventually. And where it doesn't satisfy those things, Apple has already solved those things. Google doesn't need to be everything for everyone,
Right.
and I think that's where Google really does a great job of helping supplant or support where the operating systems are not. So that's my 2 cents. Onward to our next article.
So our next article is the Vivaldi browser, and is at least it's available, and it is a free built-in email client that has the calendar and the feed reader. I don't know if I need that much noise on my email. My email's already, requires more hours that I want to recognize. But if you have not an insane amount of influx like I do, it may be a great opportunity to go and get your email, get your browser, get your calendar, and everything integrated for free.
Well, so I'll note that Opera used to have an email client built into their
Yep.
browser, and then of course Mozilla Firefox has developed the Thunderbird. Mozilla Foundation, that is, has developed the Thunderbird email client for many years. And so it's not outside of the realm of normal for these various folks to do that. I wish that Chrome would actually build an email client in, but that would probably, that's a pipe dream. And so it's really great to see Vivaldi build an email suite into the browser, because there are some people where it's just they want the simplicity. They don't need they just need a simple email client, and they have Verizon or Cox or whatever it is, and they just want to be able to get their email in the browser and have everything kind of concentrated in one place.
Right.
So I can see a lot of retired folks, a lot of folks who have just one email address that's tied to their ISP, and they want to be able to utilize it. And now this gives them that capability. I'm not expecting this to take over Outlook. It's
No,
just supposed to be
no.
there.
This is not.
And
But
I
this
bet
is
you it's going
not
to be
for
better
that.
than yeah, and it's going to be better than Microsoft Mail, so
No.
so you're going to get a better, more fluid experience, and hopefully better and more rapid updates to the email client from there. So, all right, next.
Our next is this is again an old news, but it's Google Task recently got the star and the sort them by importance. I actually the reason I keep it was because I thought that was already there in the Google Task, and when I saw it, I was like, oh really? Okay, well now gets more functionality, and hopefully more people will enjoy Google Task.
Yeah, I mean, Google Tasks just got the ability for you to set recurring capabilities on those tasks,
Oh wow.
and some other pretty good and sophisticated task management features are now coming to Google Tasks. I really feel like the one limitation is that you can't take Google Tasks out of the sidebar, right? It's stuck within Gmail, Google Calendar, and otherwise. There is a link that's out there that you can click on, and it'll open it up in a full browser window, so it's browser width. But it's still nice to have the app. I've actually been using Tasksboard. So if anybody is interested, just go to tasksboard.com, and you can actually use it in like a Kanban style. But I'm just using it to basically get the tasks out of the Google Calendar sidebar, the Gmail sidebar, so that I have it in one full view, so I can work on it and organize projects. Okay, next up.
So our next one is Adobe plans to make Photoshop on the web free. And I'm going to add as a competition to Canva. And I'm going to say good luck. And then I'm ready to move to the next article.
Yeah. So, I think this is an issue of competition with apps like Canva and others, where you have a lot of really interesting competition, and they're just trying to compete in the world.
It is, but the problem is the image. For the average user, okay, Canva feels friendly. I'm not saying if it is or is not, how accurate that is, that's irrelevant. The user, when you mention Canva, they think, oh yeah, that's friendly. I can use it. I can design. I can build. I can do. When you set Photoshop, Okay, the average user runs the opposite direction. I remember there was an app that allows you to open actual Photoshops many years ago, before Adobe had Photoshop for the iPad, and allows you to open them, work, save everything. And when I brought those up, people were like, yeah, but I don't want to use anything related to Photoshop. So again, good luck trying to compete into that. I think they should have looked into a different way to do it. But
I think it's just bringing people who are in the maybe Adobe Creative Cloud ecosystem, or hesitant to get into the Creative Cloud system. This is a way to get them an entry point into it for free. Kind of, tickles their fancy, and then they'll go into the full version of Photoshop. Obviously, this is going to be a lesser version. It's not going to be full featured. So it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. All right, on to some Amazon news that I'm particularly
so
excited about.
Amazon launched a bunch of devices on September. Okay. And there are a couple in particular that I want to bring, or to mention. One was the Amazon Echo with the Eero included. Eero is the mesh solution for Amazon, similar to what Google have. Okay. But I thought it was very interesting that Amazon came and integrate them together, because for one, it make it a much beautiful device to put on your surface, okay, than the actual white thing on there. So that's one. The second thing is something that I have not bought, because I think my wife will kill me if I turn a light at 4 in the morning in the bathroom. Okay, but it's a Halo Rise, and it's basically a bedside clock, sleep monitor, and then it will turn on when you should um, wake up. I really want that thing, except that I think I may need to move out of the room in order to test that one. And the final is the Amazon Kindle Scribe. And this is something that I'm particularly excited and have considered buying it more times than what I'm going to recognize, mostly because Amazon is bringing handwriting to the Kindle platform, and is going to be able to do PDFs and other things. And this is what is interesting to me. One of the obstacles, from my perspective, to handwriting on devices is trust. Okay, people may understand the Apple, trust the Apple, may understand the Googles of the world or the Samsungs of the world, but when you go to other brands, okay, people suspicious. Even um the Remarkable people is like, but I don't know. Okay, it's not only the obstacle of the cost, it's also, I don't know who is behind this. Okay, so having a platform like Amazon, okay, where they have showed you what they do with their devices and the kind of support you're going to get and all that, bring something like this is very exciting in my perspective, because now more people will begin to test this and to really play with these things and to really try these devices. And I think that is going to be incredible.
Yeah, I have a Kindle Scribe on pre-order, so I'm just waiting for them to ship them, and and we'll see how the device performs. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it performs, and if it performs well, it works really well with the ecosystem I've set up. I mean, I have everything connected between my Amazon Kindle and my Evernote annotation system for things that I'm reading. So it makes for a really nice symbiosis there. I'd love to see more integration between Kindle and maybe GoodNotes, but you can still push an annotated item to the Kindle application. So if it's in the Kindle application, I'm hoping that Scribe then allows you to continue annotating and then just basically synchronize those back into the Kindle. So you can kind of push. I don't expect to take it back into GoodNotes, right? It's just the ability to be able to get both into the same
Right.
space when you want to. But I like the idea of taking a PDF that I want to annotate, go into GoodNotes, mark it up, and then export that to the Kindle Scribe platform, and being able to continue annotating in the future. I think that's a really nice feature set. Plus, I like the idea of being able to go to a meeting and just writing on a physical surface, just like I would the iPad, and not have the greater distraction of, for lack of understanding of what people see and how they see it, they perceive an iPad as being a computer, whereas I think the Kindle Scribe might not feel so much like a computer and may be less
Mhm.
distracting. And so I like that idea of of being more productive in the space with an individual, because they're not so distracted by the technology, because it's just an e-ink surface that I'm writing on, and that makes it a
It
little less.
is, and I think that's exactly what make it really really powerful. Is for most users, this will give them a free distraction device. The other thing that is exciting for me is for many users, this is the first time they are going to have a free distraction device, because you have many devices, so you can set any of those to be a distraction free device. I have distraction free devices that when I grab them, they don't make noise, they don't make notification, they don't make anything. But that requires having multiple devices. For many people, this will be their first experience to this, really be disconnected, but being able to take the notes and to mark their books and all that. So I am very excited with this product.
Definitely. All right. So with that, that takes us along to
To our
our
last news, and
last
is
item.
Amazon announced that they are going to join Matter. And our listeners may remember when we talk about Matter, Matter is the alliance that they're trying to get, Google and Apple and Amazon and all those big ones to get together and to fix a standard, or hopefully a standard, for communication and automation and all that. And Amazon has finally announced that 17 of their Echo devices will get that. Initially, they said they were going to do it only, the support's going to be only with Android phones, but the iOS will come early 2023. But the fact that Amazon is jumping with at least some of those devices is very, very exciting, because it's an issue that you can connect these devices. So get some that work on the Amazon ecosystem, some that work on the Apple ecosystem, some that work on the Google ecosystem. And this is the goal with Matter, is to really make all of them work together.
Yeah. So you should be able to buy something from Amazon, Apple, Google, what have you, and know that they're going to be able to communicate, have secure connectivity, but while still retaining capability across your home. You don't want to have to buy a new home that has been smart enabled and then find out that all of the smartness is dumb. So this is just a progression, an evolution in standards, and it's great to see Amazon embrace it finally. And I think that good on Apple, good on Google,
Mhm.
for leading the charge here to make sure that Matter, it's really a whole new language in terms of protocols for people to be able to really have that level of strength and faith in smart home technology. So good to see it come together. And so with that, we're going to speed our way right forward to our story of the week. This week we're talking about the rise of the role of a chief remote officer or chief remote work officer. Talk to us about this, Augusto.
So this article comes from the BBC, and it's talking about how many firms are now finally pivoting to this hybrid, to the remote role. I remember when the beginning of the pandemic, I was saying there is 30% of people who will discover this is the life that they want. There is 30% of people who will run. Okay. And the moment they say you can go back to the office, they will run. And there was people who will discover, you know what, I'm good in the middle. I can go some days to the office because I need the human touch and interaction, but I can also stay home some days and work and get some work done. The reality is different. And what some of these organizations have found is, well, they need somebody to coordinate this. It's a lot more complexity into this than just saying, okay, work from home. No, no. We learned in 2 years that there is technology concerns, gear, how do you connect the gear, okay? And as time evolves, well, those gears get broken, lost. So who is going to make these decisions? Is it going to be HR? Is it going to be IT? Or, as we are seeing racing, it's going to be this new chief remote officer, What I didn't agree with the article was the article talks about, well, this is a temporary role, maybe for the next 5 years. And I completely disagree. I think this is a role that is going to stay forever and for a really long time. It's like IT on Y2K. Yeah, when for some of us old enough, okay, to remember Y2K, okay, oh well, IT is going to disappear in 2001. Well, 22 years later, we're still waiting for IT to lose significance, and now it's more significant than ever. And I think this is what we're going to find into this, because companies has discovered many things. One of them is that the potential of candidates, when you are okay to do hybrid or even fully remote, expand significantly, and you can get even better people, and you can get people who work, and the people who is remote is willing to work with the flexibility of the time difference in a much open way than most corporations were expecting. So I think this is a role to stay. um, and we're going to see a couple of iterations of this. Some of these chief remote officers will be more close, depending the organization, to the HR way of do things, and some of them will be more to the IT way of do things. And it is going to take maybe those 5 years to define where is that range. But I don't think uh, it's going this is a temporary chief role in any way, shape, or form. I think this is something that for a lot of people in technology and HR will be a very nice thing to aspire to.
Like the topic of everyone in the office, right, counting butts in chairs, to hybrid, to fully distributed work, a fully remote, workforce. There's room for shades of gray, and I think not every company is going to have a chief remote officer. Not every company is going to need one, but for the companies that do want to have inroads, and those again who are being more progressive today and want to go fully distributed like Yelp did, you know, it makes sense for them to have someone who's focused on that. Like Google has a chief executive productivity advisor, right? And the executive productivity advisor, who's Laura May Martin, her job is helping Googlers be more productive. And it's like that makes sense for a company of Google's largesse.
Mhm.
So, you know, every company needs to decide whether or not they need someone like this. I think it's really phenomenal and fantastic to see companies we know, like Doist that produces Todoist, and Atlassian that produces Trello and Jira and many other applications. They've embraced this kind of role. And I also agree with you that I think it's going to take a few years for us to define what that role is, whether it's going to touch HR, whether or not it stays within the C-suite, right? Staying as a chief remote officer, or whether it will get downgraded into more of a director role, and not so much a higher up there. But is it going to fall squarely in HR's camp? Or are more HR professionals going to become more tech savvy? I would presume the former than the latter, but that's what it is. And I think most likely what you're going to see is some level of interdisciplinary role where they're doing a little bit of both, a little bit of technology and a little bit of HR, and trying to mediate those two. It is an area of management, but it's really like it's helping support people self-manage, which is a very, very different perspective than directly managing people to make them more productive, right? These are people who are working on their own and need help and support in making sure that they get everything set up correctly. So it's kind of a balance there, and I'm really curious to see how this comes about. And of all the roles that have come out in the world in recent years, I haven't really considered in the past 20 some odd years, what a job would be for me. But then when you come up with this title of chief remote officer, I'm like, you know what? I do pretty well in that role.
Yeah.
So there you go. Those are my thoughts on the subject. Any
Yeah,
final
that will
thoughts?
be a very interesting role. I agree with you. It is something that for a person who has worked remotely now for more than 10 years, it is something very, very interesting. And I've been lucky enough to work with and consult with organizations to get more remote and how it is going to do. The ironic part of this is I'm sure some corporations will make that role in building in office instead of remote, but we will see it and laugh in due time.
That is probably true. There's probably that faux pas on its way, if it hasn't already happened. But either way, with that, we've covered the productivity and related technology news for this week. Thank you to Augusto Pinaud for putting together this show each and every week. And so thank you, Augusto.
Oh, my pleasure.
All right. If you do not know, we have the website anythingbutidle.com, and you can find our show notes with links to all the stories. Once we get back to doing tools of the week and any extra stories that we didn't cover, certainly the ones we've covered while we've been absent, you can capture all of those things as well as a text transcript that's readable on the page as well as downloadable as a PDF. And so you can get all of that at anythingbutidle.com. And if you just click on that particular episode, you'll see everything on that page. After looking at the show notes, if there is something that we missed, feel free to leave a comment. You can also tweet or DM us at Anything But Idle. So we're at Anything But Idle on Twitter, or you can use our contact form. So there on the contact form, you can go ahead and leave us a message. You can also join us in our private group, or it's a exclusive group, not private necessarily, inside of Personal Productivity Club, which you heard about earlier in the show during the ad break. Either way, Anything But Idle has its own space, and if you go to anythingbutidle.com/community, which is right on your screen right now, anythingbutidle.com/community, you'll be taken to sign up for both Personal Productivity Club and to join us in the group. And then you can ask us questions, you can comment on any of the articles that we discussed, all of that fun stuff as well. If this is your first time watching, the best place to really follow us is inside of Personal Productivity Club. The next best place to watch the live streams is through YouTube by going to youtube.com, typing in Anything But Idle, and just clicking on that subscribe button so you can get notified when we do go live. Sometimes it's a few minutes before or after the hour when we go live, and it's just good for you to be able to do. Of course, you can listen to us in the podcast anytime after the fact by just going into your favorite podcast app, looking for Anything But Idle, and subscribing in there. And you can rate and review us, but of course, feel free to let us know, let others know about the podcast. And that, of course, increases our reach to the personal productivity community. And so thank you for recommending us to your friends and family and so on and so forth. But with that, we will see you all next time on Anything But Idle. Here's to your productive life.